Hey,
Hello.
how are you doing today?
I'm good. I feel hydrated, which is always good.
That's important. That's important. I don't feel like I drink enough water.
Yes. Uh, you don't.
I know my family gives me a lot of crap about it.
I mean, a lot of people don't drink enough water though. A lot of times I go through cycles. I'm like, okay, lots of water, and then I just get busy and I just stop thinking about it. But cheers. Where's your water? Where's
Here's
where's
my
the water?
water. Here it is. Here it is.
Cheers.
Let's start off. Everybody, drink your water. Drink your water. Everyone take a sip of water.
Sip of water.
Mhm. A big sip.
Too bad you don't have the Antara swag water bottle,
Oh, I do. I do.
which you haven't used
Here is
yet.
the Antara Swag water
Ow!
bottle.
A
Yes.
prototype. It's a
Yes.
prototype,
My
but
sister
it's beautiful.
Shivani has
Yeah.
outdone herself with the Antara swag.
I would want the purple with white letters and gold.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
hey,
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
hey,
Either
hey.
way,
We've
you
got
got multiple options.
multiple options, multiple options. We're working on the Antara swag.
Yeah, swag.
So today we're going to talk about bullying. And I don't know. I was asking Sojourner before this, what should we talk about today? And I felt like, I don't know, this was just something that arose for me this morning. And it's because when I was young, first grade, second grade, third grade, I was really bullied. I was really, really bullied. And partially because I was the only brown person in a sea of white people, but I think that's part of it, but I don't actually think, in thinking about it, I don't think that's all of it. I think that, and this is really coming up for me now because I recently was on this, I joined the Facebook group, which I think I mentioned maybe on the last podcast, but I joined this Generation X Facebook group by mistake. And so it's been interesting to see these things pop up, but this tension that's going on in the group is like half the people who are like, oh, you can't take a joke, you're just a big snowflake, and then kind of mentality of like toughen up mentality. And then the other half seem to be like, can't you show some more compassion, and seem to be very soft-hearted and right. And then and then there's the in-between people kind of who are kind of rest somewhere in between. So it's like all types in that range. And then recently, just maybe 2 days ago, somebody actually messaged me directly. Somebody who falls in the camp of all of you are snowflakes, messaged me directly and said they had gotten kicked off of Facebook because too many snowflakes had come at them. And they were super angry. And they were like, they said something to direct their anger at me. And I thought it was kind of funny. I didn't quite take offense to it. I just kind of thought it was funny that someone had taken the time to message me. Some person that I had never even met, had taken the time to message me. So my response to them was, do you feel better now? And their response was, why, yes, thank you, I do. And I said, well, I'm glad that I could help. And they said, you really are a big dummy, aren't you?
Wow.
And my response was, I can see that you have no sense of humor. And then they didn't respond back. But I thought it was funny because, it's like the very thing, like they were clearly upset and were trying to get a rise out of me, I think, wanted something else in return. And I couldn't give that in return because it was kind of like, I don't even know you, and you're kind of coming at me and like clearly angry, and it's fine because I don't even really know you. It just wasn't personal to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what happened was it kind of that like context has brought me back to like, what does this mean, this sensitivity? And I was a really sensitive kid. I'm still a very sensitive person. And I actually don't believe that anybody is actually not sensitive. I think everybody's actually sensitive. But some of us are more like trying to avoid that part of ourselves, or, don't want to actually go there, or, have been hurt by that sensitivity. And so I don't know, the tendency for me was to sort of like find a hardening to survive. And that's kind of how I got out of that, because I was getting bullied partially for, I think just being different racially, but also I think part of it was like, I wear my heart on my sleeve, and even more so when I was younger.
Yeah.
And kind of out of a naiveness, not even like intentionally. I was just very, very naive about the world, and walked through the world with like so much heart. And so I got pummeled for it. And so that really made me think about bullying and like what is going on today inside of schools, and that this bullying phenomena still continues.
Yeah. Gosh, it makes me think so many things, but I'm like, of course, I'm like, what is the origin of this? Because it's culture. Our culture is bullying. Like American culture, I don't know, like I feel like it's a part of the culture. When I think about, you can't take a joke with that kind of comment. Very much what comes up to me, and I've had conversations about this with friends when I'm like calling them in, or with my family when I'm just like, oh, that word, and they're just like, whatever. Using ableist words, using racist things, and members of my family talking about like, oh, those Mexicans are A, B, and C like this, or my friends like making fun of, people who are my friends, and I've called them in. I've been like, oh, we don't use that word to describe this person. Like when I went down south and people are using the word retarded, I'm like, well, for me in my little bubble, it's like that word has been out for so long. Like it's not been okay to say that word for years. And so I'm just like, okay, nobody's been saying that for years except for in their communities. It's just like everyone says retarded. Oh, that's retarded, and I'm just like, oh. And so like what comes up and what I often say when I'm mentioning this to people is just like, we so have a culture of using words or our humor being based in belittling someone else or at the expense of somebody else's experience. And for me, if I feel like, we're like making fun of people because of their weight or because of their body hair, or because of their body odor, it's like all of these things. It's like I get to laugh because of something that's going on with you, and you get to be the scapegoat and like the butt of my joke, and that's such a part of our culture. And now I see it shifting. But there is this huge divide of people who just say it because everyone who participate in these things, that seems so small, seems just like, oh, it's just a joke. It seems small to them. And it also seems small to them because no one around them is aware or conscious that like it's hurtful, or talking about how other ways to talk about, other ways to have humor, other ways to have fun with each other. It's like, this is just how it's always been, but it's at the expense of other people. And yeah, it's hurtful, and it's challenging because there are so many people who are like, it's fine, you're a snowflake, get over it. And then other people were just like, gotta start having more compassion. Like we gotta start being more aware of like causing less harm to each other. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's really funny you're saying this because another thing that popped up in my feed today from the same page, because this is always the tension. Somebody said it was some sort of meme that said we're not allowed to have comedy anymore. And 2021 was the year that no comedians were allowed on the stage anymore, or something to the effect of like that. And then there was like, making comments like, oh, so now, yeah, 2021 was the year that we had to stop making fun of each other, so now we're not allowed to laugh. Like that was the sentiment.
Yeah.
And I do think that that's what people think comedy is like, right? And there is something comedic about making fun of yourself.
Exactly. I think it's fine. Like if someone who's of a culture wants to make fun of their culture, if someone, who has a disability wants to make fun of their own disability, but the other way around, no.
There's sort of a fine line, I think. There's sort of a fine line. It's kind of a way that you do it, and the way that it kind of comes out. Like, I did go see Trevor Noah a few weeks ago, and there was plenty in there of like, I wouldn't want to say, I don't think that he was making fun. It wasn't really making fun of any cultures, but he's famous for doing accents. And but it's so interesting. He does it in a way that somehow I don't feel offended. And so I think there's something in there, and I kind of haven't figured it out yet, to be totally honest, but there's something in there that, is like a fine line, that I don't think we've learned, like how to actually create that, like how to actually do it and do it well. I don't feel like we know. And so before, it used to be this humor that was very crude and making fun of all the cultures, right? And making fun of everything and anything, and anything went. And now that's not okay anymore. And there's this reaction of like snowflake. But then I've also thought about it the other way around. Like that's what I've been thinking about. And because there's this like, there's also the whole thing of like, when we're acculturated in this way. And so we haven't gotten to the habit of breaking that habit yet. Like we don't know, like, so people slip up all the time, or they don't know, or they just kind of do it. And then there's this whole criticism around call out culture of like, so now you're going to take my thing that I did and you're going to yell at me and call me names because I did it wrong. Kind of that whole thing. So it's kind of interesting. It's like almost like trying to find, like, if I'm going to correct somebody, it's like finding a way of like sharing why, using that word is not correct and why that's hurtful, without kind of almost going in this way of like, you jerk, kind of thing. And like, so how to have a dialogue almost around those things. And because people don't know, because I think everyone's in their bubbles. I'm fascinated with like the bubbles that we're in, right? And if all of your friends are using the word retarded still, then you may not even have enough awareness to even realize that that's not a word you should use anymore.
Right. Yeah.
Until someone actually shows you why you shouldn't use that.
Right.
In a way that you can hear it.
Yeah. And I the thoughts that I have is, number one, that I want, making fun of people or finding humor in another person's experience and culture, in a way that's not scapegoaty or, belittling. There's got to be some kind of like appreciation and compassion in the way that you're making fun of them, like, yeah. Or a way that you're creating the humor that also is like a desire for connection and not just those people kind of thing, And then another thought is just that when someone says, you can't take a joke, you're too sensitive, it's like, are they not also being sensitive in that moment? are they not also being very sensitive and defensive about, not being receptive to other possibilities of, like, they're being sensitive and defensive around protecting what they know. That's a lot of emotion to kind of like come back at a person and be like, you're sensitive. It's like, well, you're feeling a lot right now about this. Got some feelings going on. Making, and
Like the
so
guy that texted me.
yeah, it's like it's both ways. There's, and like you're saying, it is a fine line um between being sensitive about that, being sensitive, and having a boundary, I think. Like like saying what you think and saying what you feel, and being compassionate for the larger world around you. But yeah, bullying in and of itself is just like, I don't care about you, and I get to do whatever I want to you and say whatever I want and think whatever I want about you, and just not have any kind of awareness or desire for connection. Like, I'm not here to connect with you. I'm here to like tell you what I think about you. And then that's it.
Yeah, there have been moments in my life where I have become the bully. And I think it really comes. So I often think that people who come back with these comments like you're a snowflake and they're bullies, I actually kind of wonder if they've actually been hurt in the same way at some point, right? Whether that be like at home or that be, in any context. But I really think about, like, because I think about that time and I think about the people that were bullying me. And I've got to think that it was first grade. It had to come from somewhere, right? You just don't wake up as a bully overnight. And I think about my bullying. Like, I have been that person that's aggressive and bullyish in lots of contexts. And I think like somewhere, like I think about how it happened, my own trajectory. I think about like, okay, I got really bullied. And so then the message is harden up, because you'll keep getting bullied until you do something about it, right? And eventually it gets really, really exhausting to be bullied, to be that person that's like considered weak or whatever it is that everyone is considering you. And so you have to, your mind starts to go, what can I do about this? How can I shift this situation? And so then you have to really be like, no. And then you kind of learn something, I think, in that of like, oh, you can kind of get your way by doing the bullying. Right. And then you become the bully. And it's kind of fascinating how like you learn sort of a toughness in that, right? And then you can kind of go the opposite extreme. And so I think, was there any wisdom in that? And I do think there's some wisdom in this, like when people are saying, don't be a snowflake. I tried to really think, is there any wisdom in what that says, right? I think that's really extreme where they're going with it. But I think there is something to like having some, not letting it go, not being like, I'm just going to sit here and take it because I'm sensitive, right? And not letting it in. So almost like someone is coming at me, right? And it's really painful when someone comes at you. I mean, it has really happened to me. But I think what has shifted for me is that I don't let everything in anymore. Like, so, I mean, because the world is a messed up place and we are not going to change it overnight. We are not going to change everyone's heart and mind overnight. So we're going to walk through the world and there's going to be plenty of criticism to be had directed at me. And I know it. Like, we can make this video and get a bunch of criticism over it. And kind of like, am I really going to let every single person that criticizes me in every single way bug me, And I think I used to, but now I'm starting to kind of get like, I'll take that. I'm actually not a snowflake. Like I'm good with like, if this person wants to text me and be mad, like I don't need to take that in. It's
Yeah.
cool. Like,
Mhm.
that's cool. You do you, and I'll do me, and it's okay. So there's some amount of like that I have learned, but to somewhere kind of be in the in between or something of like, where I don't turn into the bully,
Mhm.
but I still have boundaries. I've created boundaries for myself, and that's gotten I'm starting to find a balance in that myself.
Mhm.
So that's a bit of interesting trajectory for me.
Yeah. I there's now I laugh and feel sad at people who bully at the same time,
Yeah.
because um yeah, I mean, when I was bullied, when I was in grade school, and the bullying that I experienced was a lot from other Black kids who were calling me, white or Oreo, or I was too white, I talked too proper, that kind of thing, and or who I thought I was somebody, and like all kinds of stuff they would say to me, and it was not fun in school. And I think about how I react to that kind of behavior now coming towards me, which kind of has a little bit in the past year, um, in a very kind of from a very unexpected place. But, this person is just kind of showing me in different ways that are very petty that they don't like me. And ways that are like so funny and petty. It's like, this is just how you're really going out of your way to take a jab at me, to take jabs at me, to make me feel a certain way. And I just don't have space for that. It's just like what you're saying. It's just like, I'm not going to give my energy to you. Like, I am not going to say, I'm going to laugh at this, and this is going to be a good story. But you are over there, living in a world where like you have to do this kind of thing. You have to do this kind of petty move, this move that is like, um, let me see. It's that is I don't know. I think of Mean Girls, like people talk about that movie, and and it feels like grade school, but this person's like grown, like a grown person. But yeah, existing from a space of like revenge and um like trying to make other people feel, you know, less than or bad or shamed and that kind of thing. And it's just like, I don't know. I think over the past few years, I have just been like, I don't, if someone is coming at me with that, I don't need to. I don't need to let that in. Like, I can really keep a distance from it and say, look what you're doing over there. That has nothing to do with me.
No,
The bullying, it has nothing to do with the person who's being bullied at
no,
all. you
no.
know
It's a lot of anger.
yeah,
It's a lot of hurt.
it's hurt. It's what it feels like.
Yeah, it's a lot of pain. I just like that's what I felt about this person that was sort of coming at me on Facebook, on the messenger. I mean, he's so angry that he didn't even respond on the thread. It was like, I'm going to message you,
Yeah.
because you stand for something I'm so angry at. And what I thought was the last thing I said was, like I said, you don't have much of a sense of humor. And what was ironic is that's what he was accusing everyone else of was like, you don't have a sense of humor, you can't take it.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's the same exact thing. Like you said, like it's exactly what you said, but it really is. I totally agree. It's this cycle. It's
Mhm.
not like anyone's any different from each other, actually. It's like there's
Yeah.
just something about, and I wonder, like, I felt like part of me just felt like I could feel compassion for this person all of a sudden, because I was like, there's just something like they must have been so bullied at one
Yeah.
point, or
Mhm.
must have been taught, like, just must have had like a hard father or a hard mother, or like someone that just kept telling you to toughen up. And, a lot of times what comes up in that thread is like, people who tell everybody they're snowflakes, they get accused by other people of being baby boomers. Like, you're like,
Mm.
they'll be like, you're such a boomer, because the boomer generation was like that, right? It's like they taught their kids to toughen up. That's what they thought they had to do.
Yeah.
And like, that's like, you can see the
Take it.
cycle that's
Yeah. Take
not
the
been broken
bullying.
there.
Uh-huh.
And I think Gen Z, right, is like, so, and the generations after probably too, it's like they're like really shifting everything, because
Mhm.
they're like, well, actually, no, we don't actually have to do that anymore.
Yeah.
We don't have to do it anymore. And I really hope, my hope is that whole cycle is starting to break,
Yeah.
but it's not, it's still there. Like, one of my close friends told me, like, about her kids being bullied,
Mm.
and bullying is like really skyrocketed in schools from what I understand.
Mm.
So even though this new generation, I think, I have a lot of hope that, this cycle has kind of gotten broken. I don't think it has. I think there's still like something there's still a thread in some people, that they're still getting the message, like, you got to toughen up. Like,
Yeah.
and to me, that means like, you know, fuck that softness,
Mhm.
don't be
Mhm.
soft.
Right.
That message is still there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's this interesting thing of like toughen up. And if you toughen up towards it, like when I do that, it makes me want to retaliate. It's like when I like tense up, it's like I'm ready to fight, you know? Yeah, toughen up. Get in there, get in the ring. I just watched Bruised on Netflix. It's just like get angry and fight back, you know? Yeah. And when there's a softening, like where I'm in right now, it's just like I'm softening and I'm like, I have compassion for this person who these people or folks who have that in them to bully. And it's not a toughening. It's like, I have compassion for you and I have compassion for myself. So I'm not gonna engage in this way,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. I think we're talking about boundaries here.
Uh-huh.
I think boundaries are good. I mean, I don't think boundaries mean toughen up.
Right.
I don't. I think they mean like, there's toughen up, like you said, means like getting in the boxing ring or whatever, has that
Mm-hmm.
feeling. But to
Mm-hmm.
me, the whole like, yeah, be soft.
Mm-hmm.
You can be soft, but you don't have to let everything in. It feels like a shield.
Yeah.
Like, to me, of just like, okay, something's coming at you, I'm gonna bring up my shield,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not gonna let that crap in. But I still feel soft for you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to still keep my softness. You're not going to mess with my softness.
Yeah.
I'm not going to allow you to mess with my softness. I'm going to, and if I get mad at this person, they've messed with my softness. They've taken the very thing that
Yeah.
then they turn me into them. And I'm not going to let you turn me into you,
Yeah.
so but I'm going to shield myself and protect myself from you. No doubt,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
I'm not, you're not going to change me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and then there are those moments where you do have, I don't know. It's like what is that? What is cutting someone off, you know? It's like I'm just not I have a softness towards you. I love you. I wish this didn't go this way,
Yeah.
but I can't have you in my life. You
Yeah.
know? Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah.
And I think that's perfectly reasonable. I
Mhm.
mean, we can't go around that. I think that's the other extreme.
Yeah.
There is the other extreme of people who wear their heart on their sleeves. And that very much has been me for a long time.
Mhm.
And of just like, I want to save everyone.
Mhm.
That mentality of like, no matter what, like, I want to save every single person, and like, I want everyone to feel their softness. And I do want everyone to feel their softness. I really, really do. Like in my heart, I want that for every single human being, even the ones that are like the biggest jerks in my mind. I want them to feel their softness, but I can't change them. I can't change them. I can only be me and not allow them to come at me. Right. And so like, I'm not gonna take them all on. Right. But if they're engaging with me, you know, I'm just going to keep my softness and keep my shield up, and that's it.
Yeah.
And that's all I can do. And my shield sometimes looks like engaging a little bit. And sometimes my shield looks like I need to cut off all communications with you for now.
Right.
You know, with the door slightly open. I think I always have a little bit of an open door because I always kind of hope that people shift, you know, people change. And if I didn't believe that, then what would be the point?
Right.
So I always, my boundary is like, it could be a pretty like, you know, hard boundary, but it's still got a little bit of room always, you know, because I don't know, maybe this person's going to come back in 5 years and find their softness again. And I don't want to cut that out. So, but boundaries are difficult, but I don't want to be the person that wears my heart on my sleeve either.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. This is it's a vast conversation. I think you know, you can get into protection and like what is the time when you do have to fight back, you know, because that's also, it's not that there's never a time for you to actually toughen up, like to physically toughen up and fight back. So there's that too, you know, like I never got in a fight when I was a kid. But there are moments and there are other kids like that make that decision and there's other people and like there's decisions to be made around that. And sometimes I think that the toughen up and fight back is a right decision, you know. So it's all about discernment, I think, you know. Yeah,
totally. Discernment. I mean, I think there's levels, like sometimes it's sort of like the last resort, almost like, okay, if somebody is like about to shoot me, and you know, maybe my shield doesn't look like just talking them down.
Yeah.
Like maybe I like literally have to like knock the gun out of their hands. You know, maybe I need to be a little, I'm not saying that the shield doesn't look physical sometimes. But yeah, so, but I do think it's always you know, I think we just don't want it to turn into, or at least I don't want it to turn into, I'm not going to become you.
Yeah.
Because you want me to.
Yeah.
I'm just not.
It's such a subjective thing depending on the community, you know, because like there's some places where if you like, that's how you get respect. Like I'm gonna punch back and then everybody respects you and listens to you. You know, my dad told me so many stories of like he was a fighter, he was a street fighter when he was a kid, and he's like everybody respected me. I could get whatever I needed, and he's like I never threw the first punch, but if someone came at me, I would fight back, and people respected me because of that, you know. And so it's like the circumstance that he was in, that was something that was a discerning choice for him.
Yeah, but I am sure that this person that came at me on Facebook, probably the same mentality, right? Like there is that, like his world, right? And all his friends, because, you know, I had to go in Facebook and check him out because then I got really curious. And I looked at all his he posts so many memes. And I like looked at all his memes and they're all angry and like, and all of this stuff. And I saw like, I was looking at what his friends post and like saw the circle he's in. Right. And I'm sure like his memes are popular and his going around calling people like me snowflakes makes him popular. Right. So that makes him do it more because he actually gains respect in his own community for calling me a snowflake.
Yeah.
And so there's that. There's like, how are you going to stop that from happening if everybody around you is telling you that's what you should continue to do? Right. So then we've like created a culture of bullying. Like bullying is good, you know, and somebody actually said this to me recently. Their child, they recognize their child to be bullying someone else. And they thought that it was actually good that their child was the bully. They were like, oh yeah, they're not gonna like be hurt in the world that way. Like, yeah, my child is a bully. So then like their child is getting the message of like, you should keep doing this. And then like probably all their friends in their circle is probably like, your child is awesome. And so then like, yeah, that's how the whole culture perpetuates itself, I think. And that's why I think that's why we're in what we're in.
Yeah.
You know, we are in bubbles.
Yeah.
We are in bubbles.
Yeah. Yeah. I think too, there's a slight difference between people saying, like, people all around you saying like, yeah, go get that person, or say that to that person, or be a bully. And being, I mean, I don't know the specifics of my father's circumstance, but from my understanding, you know, like I said, he never threw the first punch, but he was in a situation where people were coming at him all the time.
Yeah.
Like he was being bullied. Like they were trying to bully him.
Yeah.
And, you know, and he had to kind of meet them where they were in order to gain respect.
Yep.
You know, so like it's a little bit of a difference that I think that if he had a choice, he wouldn't have. He wouldn't have.
But that's his shield. That's his shield.
Right. Exactly. That's the way that he was creating boundaries, for sure.
Yeah.
And it was in a very physical way.
Yeah.
A very violent way. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that may be what the boundary has to look like. You know, it may be, no one is saying like, oh, the boundary has to be really soft. It might have to be not so soft. Exactly. But it's just, I think it's the mentality that you're going in at. Like if you're doing it because everyone is coming at you and you're super angry, and then you just go home, you beat them all up, and you're just turn into this angry person, then you've kind of let it all in, right? You've let them turn you into someone else. That's a whole different story. But if it's about like, not that, if it's about a boundary, if it's about like a shield, then it becomes a whole other thing.
Like you protecting your values, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a very fine line.
I mean, I think about like the history of this country and, you know, just how all of the different people came to be here, and you know, all of the stories that I have in my family and of Black folks, you know, going into school, just like the bullying and like the intense like mental psychological degradation that was happening to anyone who wasn't white, you know. And then also like immigrants is just like it's so much a part of our culture. So like when I hear you say, you know, bullying is on the rise or bullying is in schools, like it's picking up in schools, I'm just like, well, what does that mean? Because like that, like what I'm curious about, you know, what's been happening and what does it mean for bullying to be less in schools and then pick up in schools? Because, you know, it's been such a part of our culture from the very beginning of like, you're less than, and I'm going to do this and this and this to you, and like do all these horrific things to you because you're not like me. And so like, you know, I feel like it's always been in schools, and I'm curious about like, what does that mean that it's heightened right now, you know, and that mentality, like the the scapegoating, the divisive, the like violent bullying mentality. What does that mean that it's doing now? I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I think we'd have to talk to some other people that are like in the now, I don't know that we could answer this question, but if I had to just take a wild guess, maybe I think bullying has always gone on.
Right.
But I think maybe it's getting more prominently discussed now because it's the same as everything else, right? Things have always gone on, but before the Me Too movement, we weren't talking about rape culture very much, right? Like it was just kind of under the radar. Like some people were talking about it, but it just wasn't in the mainstream.
Right.
Now I think some of these things are like, we're like starting to see in the mainstream, like, oh, wait a minute, this isn't actually good. Whereas before it was like, oh, it's fine, toughen up, mentality. So there's not like much being done about it.
Right.
Now it's like gaining all this prominence. And so I think it's good that it's coming to the surface, but it may seem like it's probably always gone on. I don't know if it's worse or better. But it's definitely like more at the forefront. But there is still a lot. What is interesting is that there's still a lot of schools and places that won't do anything about it.
Right.
And don't know what to do about it. So I had, I recently read something on the Maryville page. That's where I'm living right now. And it's a lot of Maryville high school stuff going on, moms talking, with their kids. And there's a lot of stuff on there of like, this is what happened to my kid the other day. And like call the school and they're not gonna do anything about it.
Yeah.
Right. They were bullied on the bus and all of this and like nothing's being done. And that again, that's always gone on. But like, I just think like the schools actually don't know what to do. Yeah. They don't actually know because you've got parents and you've got people still going, oh, it's fine. And this whole dynamic of like, oh, but I want my kid to be a bully. Like they're tough. Right. And so then what is the school to do if the kids' parents don't care? Yeah. Right. What is the school like really going to do? Because they're getting the message at home that way, or, whatever it is. And some people just don't think it's an issue. Some people think it's the same dynamic. It's just perpetuating itself at school. So that's my guess, is that it's actually, I don't know if it's getting worse. I mean, I don't even know how to gauge that. I don't even know how we would know, right? Because I just think it was so under the radar. Like when I was younger, like I didn't tell anybody about what was going on for me. Yeah. Like I didn't think that there was any protection from that. In fact, if I went to somebody, that would actually make me more of a target. Right. That's not actually helpful. And I didn't have the tools. Like no one taught me the tools no one taught me how to use a shield. Right. So I don't know. I maybe it was just a lot more silent back then. We didn't have social media either. Right. So now I'm like seeing all this stuff because of social media. Like it's just in my view.
And that can be another reason why it's on the rise too, is that there's a whole nother layer of it, digital bullying as well. Yeah.
Yes, you're right. You're right. But a lot of things are on the rise. Like I think road rage is on the rise. Like I definitely feel more road rage than I ever have before. And my sense of it is like people just are so in a hurry and feel like they've got to like, right. This happened to Matt, my husband, the other day. He was like I had a gate. We were going to a friend's house and he was at the gate, and this woman was so impatient behind him that she just started flashing her brights like on and off as fast as possible. And then she started honking her horn. And he has a neurological condition. And so that like activated his neurological condition. He had a seizure in the car. And so he couldn't even get out to tell her to stop. But luckily he was able to dial somehow my phone number, and then we came to know so we could come. Yeah. But as he was just standing there, she just got even madder. She started doing it even more. And then what he said, then he was trying to get out of the situation. So he was like, I just got to get out of the way So in his seizure state, he was trying to get out of the way just to get her to stop.
Yeah.
And so what she did was she rolled down her window and she screamed at him and she said, DoorDasher.
Oh my God.
And, you know, as though like DoorDash, the delivery people, and she assumed he was a delivery person who didn't know what they were doing.
Mm.
And so she meant it in a derogatory way, as though delivery people are like, you know, as though you can treat delivery people that way, you know, or whatever her mentality was. But it's just this whole entitled mentality, not even thinking like what is going on in the car, this kind of hurried sense, this aggressiveness that is like really taken hold. Like, you know, like it's okay for me to be as aggressive as I want. I don't even have to know who's in the car or what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
That feels like it's on the rise.
Yeah. Entitlement. There, I mean, there's so many reasons and ways and opportunities in a day to like cut someone down or get mad. Like that person and this person and that person. But there's so many more better things to do with my life.
Well, it's kind of ironic because another thing that a lot of the people who are using that terminology of snowflake are also saying, and this is the recurring theme that I've heard, if everyone just worried about themselves, everything would be fine. Just worry about yourself. And it's funny because I don't feel like they're taking their own advice in a lot of ways.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. Worry about yourself.
Yeah. It is true. It is true. But, you know, it's hard in our work. We often get people to look internal. And there's so much resistance from so many people about wanting to even look internally because it's hard. It's hard. I mean, I have been doing a lot of work on myself this last 2 months, particularly around anger and around, you know, this balance of what I've been talking about, this shield and my softness, and how do I balance the two? And, you know, I've had to really take a look at myself, and sometimes it's really ugly. Sometimes you just don't like what you see. And you realize, shit, I'm really the only person that has any control over what I do. I should, you know, but it's not easy. It's really not. And that feels like the work to me that so many of us have a hard time doing.
And that's reasonable. It's not fun.
No.
It's not fun to see, you know, that you're not the person that you imagine yourself to be. Who are you really?
Exactly.
Oh, you know, I'm just like the person that I think is horrible, you know, in some ways. I'm doing similar things in other aspects of my life, you know, whatever you unveil about yourself when you go inward, you know, it's not a fun experience all the time, you know. And so it makes sense that people don't want to do it. And it hasn't been in our culture to do it. It's been in our culture to blame everything on whatever's around us. It's never our problem or our responsibility. So, you know, it's not shocking that nobody wants to look inward, you know, not nobody, but like there's a really good amount of people that do. And those are, I think, a lot of the times, most times, the folks who are revealing new things about culture, about themselves, and making invitations for us to see the world, ourselves in a new way. You know,
Yeah.
look what I found. Look what I discovered. Check it out.
I think some really good shifting is happening. I mean, I remember when I was growing up, therapy wasn't very popular. Like in my community, particularly, therapy had a real stigma around it. I mean, it still does, But with the younger generations, that's becoming less and less so. Like people are starting to understand what therapy even means, you know, and it's not like you don't have to be like used to be associated with this word crazy. Oh, you have to be crazy. And there had a stigma around it too. What does crazy mean? You know, well, it means like you've got mental illness, and there was a whole stigma around mental illness even now, but that's starting to shift of like, oh, actually all of us could use therapy. All of us are doing this. Like all of us are, like, therapy is about looking at your own crap. You know, in a lot of ways, it's like about looking at your own crap. And that's starting to become more and more, I think, you know, okay.
Yeah.
More mainstream. So I really hope it does become more mainstream to look inside.
Me too. In a real way, not in a spiritual bypassy way.
Yes.
In a real way.
Yeah. Yeah. The good stuff and the shitty stuff.
And then less bullying will happen. It'll be clear that bullying someone is not, you know, doesn't benefit either you or the other person.
Yeah.
It may feel like it because you get a little ego trip. And I understand that it's fun to make fun of people and bully people. Like it's kind of fun. It's like something to do and makes you feel good about yourself. But, you know, once you start looking at yourself and looking at what's really happening, it's like, oh, this is not fun anymore. Oh, this doesn't help me out at all.
It doesn't heal whatever the dissatisfaction you have going on inside of yourself. You know, it offers a temporary satisfaction, but it's just not a cure-all for whatever it is that's happening in you. It's not gonna really take away the pain you're feeling. Right? That requires deep work. And like you said, it's difficult to do this deep work. And so lots of people don't want to do it. But the thing about doing the deep work and why you would want to do it is like, it's so amazing on the other side. Like, right. It's like, you have to go through all of the crap in order to shift it. And when you can shift it, then that's when you get that's when the beauty of it comes. That's when the feel good, there is a feel good. In other words, like it's not all just doom and gloom. Oh, we're going to look inside of ourselves and just see shit. It's transforming the shit. And then there's wisdom on the other end of it. Yeah. That's why you do it.
And a lot of the times, you know, the pain is covering up all the beautiful things, you know, so it's unveiling all of it, you know, and learning to uplift what also is you love about yourself and that you think is beautiful and amazing and, you know, beneficial to yourself and your community. And a lot of the times with I think people who are bullying or causing a lot of pain and violence, it's like the pain and violence and the shit is like, is what's a dominant feeling, a dominant, you know, thing that they're experiencing, and like uplifting that other aspects of yourself that maybe have not been visible to you or have been downplayed, you know, like uplifting the goodness of yourself. So you start to feel that, you know, as much, if not more. And then that's what you actually begin to move from, you know.
That's beautiful. I want to live in that world.
Yeah, I think you do live in that world. I think a lot of your, you know, you understand and you uplift your own goodness in a lot of ways in the world.
I guess what I meant was I want so much for everybody to have that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me too.
Love you.
I love you.